Hi everyone, my name is Ashley and I'm a recovering addict, and today I'm going to be talking about the time that I almost got murdered and had to run away from somebody's house. So, I met this guy through a couple of friends where I live, and me and him got to talking when we were hanging out together, and I had just recently got the rights to my daughter taken. My mom had guardianship over, and I just lost it, and I was really going through it. And he told me that I could move in with him and his wife and his female roommate and their kids. And I wouldn't have to pay rent, I would just have to help take care of the kids. And that I could live in the basement with their female roommate. And that they could get me a job. And if I needed to go to rehab to get her back, they could do that too. And basically just making it sound like the perfect situation. So I decided to go over to where he lives with him, which was about an hour to an hour and a half away. And we got to go on, to start off with, we got to go on a very busy highway, like Highway 70. And because it's a very big city, it leads to a very big city with lots of traffic. And he wanted to ride over there on a moped. So it took all night to get over there, but along the way he kept stopping to make these weird phone calls, and he would always go and be very secretive about them and try to play it off like him and his wife were fighting, and just doing all kinds of weird stuff, like the whole ride just acting weird. And every time that I would start to question him, he would flip out and be like, "Why don't you trust me? You need to trust me," and just like would go completely insane. So we get over there to Indianapolis, which is where we're going, and he tells me we can't go to his house up until after dark when everybody's there. And so I'm like, okay. So we go and we do a couple things throughout the whole day, and like he's constantly trying to bum money off of me and trying to get me to buy drugs and trying to get me to do all kinds of stuff. And his friends are also acting really weird, so I don't know if they were in on it or if they were just weird. But sorry, I get anxiety when I tell this story. But so we spend the whole. So I go to get my nails done while we're waiting, and he disappears. He says he's going into his family's furniture store to talk to his wife. So I'm done getting my nails done, and I wait for like an hour, and he never shows up. He's just like MIA, gone. So I go into their furniture store and try to look for him. And even this furniture store has like a creepy vibe. Like I can't describe it. It just was eerie feeling. There was like nobody in there. And I walked around and I tried to find somebody, anybody, and I couldn't find anybody. So I walked out, and then like a little bit later he comes out and says that it took so long because he had a seizure and fell down the stairs and all this other stuff. But I never seen an ambulance there. I never seen anybody panicking. Like there was no signs to show that he had had a seizure and like fell down the stairs and all that. And so we're supposed to pick his son up because he says he's got custody of all 5 of his kids. And he didn't say where the other ones were, but he said his son Noah was at school and we had to go pick him up at around 3. So it gets past 3 and I'm like, "Hey, don't we got to go pick up your son?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, I forgot, he's got football practice." So he's like, "We got to get him around 6. So here it comes 6, and we still don't go get this kid. He like completely forgets all about him. So I'm like, "Hey, dude, what about your son?" So he makes this call, and this call sounds like his roommate Amber, which I didn't know at the time, but after I heard her voice, I put 2 and 2 together. The voice was of his roommate Amber, and he was basically like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot Noah. Can he stay the night at Zach's house?" And she's like, "Yeah, sure." So he says he's gonna bring some clothes over later, which, by the way, he never does. Never hear about this kid again. So we finally are gonna go to his house, and he tells me that he's got to drop me off a block away because he's got to talk to his wife Emily. And I'm like, "Why? I thought she knew I was coming." And he's like, "I just gotta go talk to her," and flips out and speeds away and makes me walk there. So I get there, and the house is like a really big house. And like you go in through the garage, and the garage is all full of stuff. Like it's so much stuff everywhere, but they're sitting out in the garage hanging out. And then I go into their house, and their house is completely dark. Like there's no actual lights on. They got dark gray carpet, and either dark gray or black walls. And I think, no, the carpet was like black, and then the walls, I couldn't tell because they had like these dark blue lights on. But either way, the house was very dark. And the only lighting was like these dark blue Christmas lights. So you could see in there, but you couldn't see very good detail in there. And they got no food in the house. I don't see any toys. I don't see any sign of any kids like living in this house. And he's supposed to have a 2-year-old, and at the time my daughter was 2, like they were the exact same age. So I knew how 2-year-olds acted. And I didn't see this 2-year-old running around anywhere. I didn't see any toys or anything. But when you walk in the house, it's like a really long hallway, and then it's got like 3 doors on each side of it. And then at the end, it's a very big bedroom. And he said that's where his wife was. And I could hear the toddler in there. But she wasn't running around or playing or anything. I would just hear her cry and whimper. And she never changed spots. It sounded like it was coming from the corner of the room. And all I would ever hear her do was cry and whimper. And so he tells me I'm staying in Noah's room. So I go up to Noah's room. And it's basically just an empty room with like no sheets on the bed, no bed covers. It's just a mattress, a TV, and like one shirt hanging up in the closet. It does not look like anybody lives in this room. So I'm starting to get a little weirded out. And he keeps disappearing. Him and his roommates just keep disappearing. And like I never know where they're going. They never say. They say they'll run to the gas station and then they'll be gone for like an hour. And so I just never knew what they were doing in their strange disappearances. But the wife never comes out to talk to me or anything. She just stays in that room with the child. And the roommate, Amber, is really quiet and just acting really weird. So they start talking about their friend that has GHB. And I don't think I was supposed to hear about it because I came up and said something about it. And he was like, oh, well, he doesn't have it anymore. He had to get rid of it because I've done GHB for fun before, like me and with some of my friends. Sorry, I get so anxious telling this. So he tells me that we're going to go pick up his friend, and I ask about the GHB. He says he doesn't have it, but so we go pick up his friend, and everybody starts acting weird. Like, there's just all kinds of weird conversations and whatnot. And one of the things that they said, that his friend said, I didn't understand, but it sounded odd. He said, sorry about what happened with your daughter last time. I didn't realize that she had shit. And I was like, what the hell is that supposed to mean? And John Paul, the guy that I went over there with, the original guy, he was like, oh, it's okay. It happens to all of us. We were just on one last night, or we were just on one last time, and it was just a really weird conversation that I didn't quite understand. So later on, I say that I'm thirsty, and instead of stopping for something to drink, they try to hand me a Gatorade. And I take like one little sip, and instantly I start feeling like really bad. I feel like a hot flash coming over me. I'm starting to get a headache, and I'm just feeling really not good. So I tell him that I don't feel good, and he asks if I want to go upstairs and lay down. So to that, I'm like, yeah, I guess so, because I didn't really know what else to do. So I went up to the bedroom and started laying down, and Amber walks up and starts staring at me. She's sitting on the outside of the room, and she's just like watching me. So I pretend to fall asleep, and she goes downstairs. And then after she goes downstairs, all of the crazy stuff starts. They have all these animals everywhere, and I didn't think much of it. I just thought maybe they were animal lovers, but they really are animal lovers. Like I heard them doing the naughty with their animals, and so I start hearing this dog whimper, and then I start hearing them moaning, and I'm just like, are they beating this dog while the other two are doing the nasty? So then the dog, after a few minutes, the dog starts whimpering, and then they stop also, and then it starts up again, and they are like doing the nasty with their animals. And then I'm pretty sure I couldn't see what was going on because I just heard it through the floor downstairs, but I could hear everything. and I heard the baby. They I think they raped the baby, and then they started wrapping something up. They were after all the graping of the animals and the baby and everything go on. I am like traumatized. I don't even know what to do at this point because I just heard all that go on, and then they're going shh, and they're wrapping something up, and then they go and throw whatever it is in the bushes. I still don't know exactly what it was that they threw in the bushes. And so I start like flipping out. I like raise up and I'm like, oh my gosh, what do I do? Do I just run away? Do I pretend to sleep? And one of them realizes I'm awake, so they start coming up and kind of like swarming me and acting weird. They're like hanging out in the room and being like, what are you doing? And I say I left my weed pipe in the van. So I go and I run downstairs and I run out to their van and pretend like I'm looking for something while trying to come up with like a plan to get out. And in their van, I find 2 brand new cases of bullets, some motor oil, a shovel, and some of them really big black trash bags. And so I freak out and I take off running. And a couple minutes later, I hear them chasing me on the moped. I can hear it like in the distance. So I'm running through this neighborhood. It's like one of those really confusing neighborhoods with all the different roads, and there's like no gas station or anything inside. It's just all these winding roads of neighborhoods. So I'm like running around. It's like 5 a.m. And finally I go start knocking on people's doors and I'm screaming like, hey, help me, help me. Somebody call the cops. And then finally I got some nice old couple to let me in like just in time. Because I was standing on their porch. They were going to go get the phone and call the cops for me. And I was freaking out because the moped was getting closer and closer. And then I didn't hear anything when I was standing on the porch. And all of a sudden something got thrown at me. I'm not sure what it was, but it sounded like a little piece of metal. And I heard it ting up against the wall right next to me. So I start flipping out more and I'm like, please let me in, call the cops. So they let me in and they call the cops, and the cops come out there and they just think I'm high and don't believe me. Like, I get this problem a lot, like especially because of my eyes. People assume I'm high even when I'm not. So the cops are thinking that I'm high and that I'm crazy, and they just take me to a girls' shelter. But while they were doing that, I could see the van and the moped. They were like following me because the cops weren't taking it seriously. And so they were still following me, and they followed me to the girls' home, and I stayed there up until my family could come get me. And even the whole way home, I was still seeing that van that they were driving, like, stalking me. Like, and nobody would believe me because everybody just thought I was high. And I'm like, I don't have hallucinations. Like, I've never had hallucinations. Even when I've taken hallucinogenic drugs, I just never hallucinate that much. So nobody believes me for a while, and they stalk me for a while. Like, they're in town. One of them is on the moped and the others are in the van. I don't know where any of their children are, especially the little girl at this time. And they follow. My family wants to go to the store, go to Miners while we're in Indy, and all of them followed me in there like they were stalking me from aisle to aisle. And I was so scared because I had my daughter with me, and I was like, if they're gonna grape their daughter, they could easily kidnap us and grape her too. So I was scared to death. I begged my family to get out, like, please get out. And finally we left and went home, and I dealt with a little bit of stalking for a while, but eventually they gave up. And I just recently found out from his ex-girlfriend that he was graping that baby, and he was videoing it and he was putting it on the internet. So he had to go on the run, and now I think he's in prison in Arizona or something for graping the baby and putting it on the internet. So finally, I don't know about all of his little accomplices, but I know he is in prison finally, thank God. So I was very traumatized for a long time afterwards, and I still kind of am. I still can't hear a moped without the fear setting back in. Every time I hear a moped, I just want to run away. So I know I was a little anxious when I told this, and I'm sorry. it's very hard for me to talk about. This is one of the only things that really has ever truly traumatized me. I've been through a lot of stuff and not much traumatizes me, but this really, really traumatized me. So thank you guys for listening, and thank you guys for watching, and stay tuned.